many a year I spent all my money on whiskey and beer. I'll go to some hollow and set up my still. I'll make you a gallon for a $2 bill.
In many ways, the life of Delia Murphy was like a ballad that was forever in the making. Like all good ballads, it has joy, sadness, humour, love. This, then, is the Ballad of Delia Murphy. So, who was she and what had she got that made her so popular?
Everybody loved her.
She was wonderful company.
She was absolutely marvellous.
Everyone, they thought the wonder Delia Murphy, you know.
Always lived for today. She was very much an existential being.
She never revealed really what she was.
The Italians felt for her very much, especially the people in the country.
Everything from a great character to an existentialist. Oh yes, and more. If popularity is the tribute that talent pays to art, then Delia was very popular. On an April Sunday in 1982, a memorial was unveiled to Delia Murphy less than a stone's throw from the family home in Hollymount in the county of Mayo. Thousands turned out to pay tribute to their uncrowned ballad queen.
It showed how many genuine lovers of Delia Murphy there were since the past, the older generation. So they came in their thousands on that last Sunday in April when the monument was unveiled. Nobody could believe it. None of the locals could believe there would be such a turnout. I think they felt very proud of Delia. I suppose they all had a good look at the house where Delia was born, and that was the big attraction. And they could see the magnificent walls in the distance and the traces of past glory and the trees that had been cut down.
There are three lovely lassies in Banyan, 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 Banyan. There are three lovely lassies in Banyan, and I am the best of them all, and I am the best of them all. For me father has 40 white shillings, 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 shillings. Me father has 40 white shillings, and the grass of a goat and a cow, and the grass of a goat and a cow.
But Delia's father had more than the grass for a goat and a cow. Jack Murphy came from Clondinner near Claremorris and left to seek his fortune in the goldfields of the Klondike in Canada's Yukon Territory. There was little gold for him there, so he moved south to Colorado, where he did strike it rich. Well, rich enough to return in 1901 with a bride and enough money to buy Mount Jennings House, a fine late Georgian building together with 100 acres of prime farming land. There among the plum trees, Delia spent her childhood. The first school Delia attended was nearby Gertskehey National School. Here she is, a sombre 8-year-old in 1910. Soon after, she transferred to Hollymount National School, where her name appears in the register in 1912. School-going wasn't as comfortable and easy-going then as it is now. These children from Delia's hometown are well-fed and happy in their modern, well-equipped school, a far cry from the reality of school-going in Delia's time.
I eat when I'm hungry and I drink when I'm dry, and sunshine don't kill me, I live till I die.
She was in the choir. She was singing Tanta Mergon. We used to have to go down every evening. My mother used to say when I'd come home, it was so late, it was time for you to have Tanta Mergo learned.
The first time ever she got interested in singing, she was going out to school. And there was what we used to call tinkers, I think, camped out on the road. So this tinker woman just said to her, would she bring this little boy to school? And she did. She would either love them, you know, even in her young days. So he was a great singer. He was Tom Mahan. He was a great singer. And that's where she started the singing. She had herself said that we used to go out visiting them, didn't you see, the evening, summer's evening. Sit down and rock for a couple of hours with them. And the melodians, called the Cardina, of course. doll type. They had one of them and she was dying to buy it, so she put a few shillings together and when she bought this cardine. And she was afraid to bring it into the house. She hid it abroad, feeding the cow with it.
That could well have been the tune the old cow died of. Ah, yes, the Tinkers. Not the socially deprived and much put upon travellers of today. No, indeed, this was something infinitely more romantic. And here we come up against the first of the many inconsistencies in the Ballad of Delia Murphy. You see, Delia insisted that the Tinkers who camped in Featherbed Lane on her father's land were the primary source of her songs and ballads.
She told me about the Tinkers, as you call them, were at the gate, and they said learned her to play music, and I said to her I wouldn't talk to them. And she said, oh, wasn't it great to learn the music?
Tom Maughan was the one she had to thank, she said, and then she'd launch into stories of midnight rendezvous around the campfire and evenings spent with Maughan under starlit skies when he spun her yarns of magic and fantasy. Her son, historian Colm Kiernan, thinks otherwise.
She was selling this as an Irish cultural tradition at a time when Ireland was trying to find a cultural tradition. And she didn't want to say, I invented it or I made it up. It was easier to say something like, oh, well, where do you think I got it from? And they'd all say, oh, well, you got it from the Tinkers. We know where you got it from. She's all right then, from the Tinkers it came. But anyone who knows anything about the itinerants at any time, they've contributed nothing to music of any kind. They're too busy trying to make a living.
Most of it, of course, wasn't traditional material at all. It seemed to me a lot of it to come from vaudeville or the stage.
She would mention song.
Mother was studying for her degree at University College Galway, and my father was a part-time lecturer there. But he was staying at Salt Hill, where my mother also came to a birthday party of a friend of hers, and she wanted to sing. Well, my father was very good with the piano and the violin, and they called him down because it was known in the guest house where the party was that he could play the piano. So he played the piano for her while she sang. And then they realized that he was the teacher and she was the student, and they had that in common too, because they were both interested in the subject that he was teaching. It happened to be economics.
She was very attractive, both in appearance and in manner, and great fun at hoolies and things like that, where we had sing-songs. And she was a very fine singer even then when she was young.
If I was a blackbird, I'd whistle and sing, and I'd follow...
University College Galway was an exciting place in the 1920s for a young woman with a lively mind and an engaging...
And wanted to express this in as only she could.
In the Ireland of the 30s, to be a married woman and to pursue a career was unusual. A mother of four, in great demand as a performer while married to the busy executive of a national broadcasting service. How did Delia cope?
Actually, we were a very close family because the circumstances in Ireland at the time weren't especially good. It was the Depression years of the 1930s, and the general standard of living wasn't very strong. And my father, of course, was supporting his own mother and various other members of his family, so that living was generally quite tight. And that tends to unite a family together more than if they're freer with money and more affluent, they can afford to be more independent. We couldn't afford to be independent. Also, we were very taken by the mystique of our parents, by my father's apparent success, and by my mother's ability to make a go of it as a singer when most women couldn't in Ireland at that time.
Because of her family situation, married to a Director General of Radio Éireann at that time, and they expected, I think, something different, a very sophisticated lady coming on stage. And I think it was a great surprise and a pleasure to them to find just one of their own coming on stage.
You have to put it in the context of the times in which she first started recording. It was a time when in Ireland we had a terrible inferiority complex. We had come out of desperate poverty, and it wasn't fashionable anymore to sing ballads, or comalies as my mother used to call them.
On the whole, they didn't really think it was music. They felt that the real kind of singers were Toti Del Monte, and various other names that they could run off, Margaret Burke-Sheridan and Count John McCormick. Curiously enough, both those two were friends of my mother. That's the strange thing. Count